In 12 months, my administration has driven down core inflation down to the lowest level in more than 5 years. And in the last 3 months, inflation was less than 1.7%. Under our policies, prices for chicken, eggs, cheese, butter, potatoes, and fresh fruit are lower today by a lot than when I took office. Hotel rates, automobile prices, and rent payments are way down as well. As a result of my direction to purchase $200 billion in mortgage bonds, a risky move, perhaps, but not for me.
Okay, that's President Trump in Kentucky yesterday, painting a rosy picture of the economy. He also used the rally to attack Republican Congressman Thomas Massie, one of the lone Republicans to speak out against Trump and who has been at the forefront of the push for transparency on the Epstein files.
We got to get rid of this loser. This guy is bad. He's disloyal to the Republican Party. He's disloyal to the people of Kentucky. And most importantly, he is disloyal to the United States of America. And he's got to be voted out of office as soon as possible. On the other hand, Ed Gowron has my complete and total endorsement. He's a true American hero, and he's a great patriot, and he's doing it because he saw what this guy was doing to our country, and he said, I'm going to run.
The person that has complete support and who I love more than anybody that's ever run is Ed Gowron. I mean,
we're at war.
Chris Matthews, you know this, I know this. If you're going after a member of Congress that hard, you better take him out. Because I will tell you, when I first ran, Newt and the team were against me from the very beginning, said I could never win, threw all their support behind somebody else. So, what do you do when your own team is trying to get you and you win by, in my case, 62%? You're like, I can do whatever I want to do. And this with Massie, he's already tried to take Massie out. This will make Massie stronger if Massie wins here. And Massie's getting punished. He's not getting punished because he's a big lib. Massie's getting punished because he's the guy that keeps pushing on the Epstein files. And every day, there's another report in the paper today. Every day, more really stunning details about a DOJ cover-up come out in the paper. Like, this is a story that won't end. I know
a lot of people want answers.
It's been put on hold because of the Iran war, but anybody thinking that the base is going to punish Thomas Massie because he's pushing the Epstein files too hard? I don't know. That's a fascinating political theory.
Even a good guy like Jerry Ford, who came in after Nixon, when he pardoned Nixon, nobody liked that. It was because we wanted to know what Watergate was about. How did the president get into it? How did he push that? The whole thing with the plumbers. What went on behind the scenes? And he shut that story down. People want to know the names. Let's face it, we don't know how many pages come out of the report on Epstein. We want to know the names. Who was involved with the sex trafficking? Who were the bad guys? Who were the guys messing around with young women or girls? And let's get it over with. You want to get it over with? Get all the names out. And until those names are out, the MAGA people mostly, the real MAGA people, are not going to take it because they know why they put Trump in there, to tell us the truth, to find out what's going on, to stop these stupid wars. They remember I hope they remember why they voted for him. They didn't want this in Iran, and they don't want this constant cover-up. By the way, is he going to go after Ro Khanna next? Is he goes after Massie? I mean, come on, he can't get rid of everybody that wants the truth about Epstein, because I think most people do.
Yeah, and David, it is, again, you always have to be careful when you sort through this stuff, because when you go after somebody in the Republican Party for wanting the truth out about Epstein, I mean, I always remember, when Republicans were attacking me for being too conservative, I was in my sweet spot, right? Because, so they're going to attack Massie for pushing what the base has been saying they've wanted for 5, 6, 7 years. That doesn't work.
Well, this isn't quite the shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue moment, where Trump is really just thrown down the gauntlet. But it's close to that in the sense that this is just Trump essentially taking his supporters' continued support for him totally for granted here. He is absolutely pocketing it, assuming that they're going to be with him no matter what.
Can I ask just open table here? Okay. And I'm not being facetious here. Does he care anymore? Does he care what happens to the Republican Party, or has he decided we're going to lose? I know we're going to lose. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want to do. Are we at that stage, John Lemire?
Some of his aides have actually tried to get him to be less pessimistic about the midterms. I mean, there's a sense that he feels the House is likely gone.
Right.
They think the Senate can still be kept. He knows that's bad for him. He does not want that, right? If Democrats take the House.
But at the same time, is he now just saying, you know what, this is...
He's been able to do whatever he wants.
He looks at the polls and he sees that the numbers are just heinous. All these off-year elections have been heinous for Republicans. Is he just getting to a point where he just doesn't care anymore?
Well, he's even said in his public remarks a couple of times now, oh, well, history tells you that the party out of power does well in the midterms. Right. Like sort of suggesting he's sort of seeing a loss on the horizon. And this is also a particularly tough one in Kentucky. First of all, it's a state with voters pride themselves in independence. There's a Democratic governor in Kentucky as much as it is a red state. And also, his ability to sort of dictate who he wants to win Republican primaries, though he still has a very good record. Yeah. He's not undefeated anymore. He's taken a few losses, including recently. So there's not any sense here that this could work.
And there's probably a reason he's pushing so hard on the SAVE Act, right? I mean, it's not going to get through likely, but he needs all the help he can get at the polls trying to manipulate it, perhaps, through the legislation.
Well, that's
with him, too, and this is something that, again, Chris Christie was saying in March or April of 2020, he also gets the argument going. So after it happens, he can go, see, they stole it. They would have only passed the SAVE Act, these Republicans, but they wouldn't take care of themselves. They wouldn't protect themselves. They wouldn't protect America, i.e., protect me.
I think it's a question you could ask throughout his political career. Does he care about what happens to the Republican Party? Only insofar as much as it helps or hurts him.
Right.
If they lose the House, he knows there may be impeachment hearings. The Epstein thing gets more serious. So I think he does care, but he just doesn't quite know what to do about all these bad trend lines we're seeing right now. Let's bring in the CEO, co-founder of Axios, Jim VandeHei. Jim, why don't you weigh on this about the state of affairs here? 7 months before Election Day, something like that, 8?
Yeah, I think to your question about does he care, that's just not how his brain works. I don't think he spends any time thinking about things 2, 3, 4 months from now. He's thinking about what's right in front of him. As Jonathan pointed out, his aides are really frustrated. Republicans are frustrated that he seems indifferent to what happens in these House and Senate races. Truthfully, I think he is indifferent because he feels like, whatever, I can bomb or I can bully or I can do things outside of the congressional process. I don't really care that much about lawmaking as long as I can exert power, and he finds ways to exert power without Congress being involved in it. But he's in a hell of a hole, and I think that hole's getting bigger for Republicans. The polls are awful, top to bottom. That's why Republicans feel like they're undoubtedly going to lose the House, might lose the Senate. They look at Texas, and they're like, what the hell's going on? You see this surge of enthusiasm there for Democrats. You don't see the same for Republicans. So there's not a lot you can look at and be like, ooh, this is awesome.
Regarding Texas, I've got to say, if I want to get a laugh, I go on X and I see how much the MAGA right is melting down about Texas. And James Tallarico, how quickly I forget. And Jim, it's funny. I mean,
don't forget him.
You've got these people who have completely checked everything they were ever taught growing up in said evangelical church over the last decade, have forgotten everything. And now they're the ones going, oh my gosh, this Tallarico guy, he may not be consistent with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I just sit there going, oh my. But the level, there are a couple guys I like very much who I follow. Every second tweet is about Tallarico. I have never seen Republicans obsess about anybody since Barack Obama first emerged on the scene. I'm not comparing him. I'm not saying Texas is not fool's gold. For Democrats, it probably still is. But there is a massive meltdown on Tallarico, the likes of which I haven't seen since Barack Obama first came onto the scene. There's just this singular focus, and I think they don't like him because he actually does, even if they disagree with him on a couple of things, he knows the Bible. And they don't like that. That's Republican candidates are supposed to be going around preaching about Jesus and then ignoring just about everything that Jesus said about taking care of the poor.
And he's a super talented politician. He's obviously overperforming in a state that's usually tough for Democrats. And as you said, he's really good at talking about faith and talking about how his policy is grounded in faith. And there is a lot of hypocrisy happening in the Christian movement in terms of their tone and being in conflict with what the Bible actually says. I will say there's still this interesting divide in MAGA, like at the MAGA leadership level, they're definitely breaking with Trump on Iran, the Epstein files, everything else. But the voters and the members of Congress are still with him, no matter what. It's almost like there's three types of Republicans now. There's a kind of your establishment Republican, there's your Tucker Carlson MAGA, and then there's just Trumpians that whatever he believes, they believe.
Exactly.
You see those people supporting him on Iran, despite the fact that Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson and go down the list of every popular MAGA podcaster have turned on the war. They're with him, not them. And that mesmerizing hold that he has over the voter and then therefore members of Congress, there's a reason we keep talking about Massey. He's like one of a couple who ever say anything in critique with any consistency of the president, despite the fact that every conversation any of us at this table have with Republicans that's off the record, they don't sound a whole hell of a lot different than we do they?
Yeah, and by the way, we can talk about Tallarico, but also just about this whole. You hear Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, Andrew Schultz. You hear all these people who supported Donald Trump now being very, very skeptical about what he's doing, whether it's on the Epstein files or whether it's on Iran, whether it's on Venezuela. But still, 87% of MAGA supporters are still with him.
Sure. Well, and also I would say in the MAGA world, there's just not a lot of belief in these polls, to be honest. That, look, they've been hearing about Trump's upside down for years, that Trump's unpopular for years, and he's won 2 out of 3 presidential elections. And so I think, especially when it comes to the MAGA world, they look at this stuff and they just say, this is fake news.
It's noise.
And I think this, you go back to the SAVE Act conversation that we just had. I think it's a very important point to say right now they are very much setting up the argument that, look, the Democrats colluded with establishment Republicans to block the SAVE Act, and then the midterm loss is exactly what you get. Because, again, remember, this is an administration that will make the wildest claims about illegal voting. And so this move from the blocking the SAVE Act and then using that as a pretext to call into question election results, I feel like we can see this coming from miles away.
I think the thing about Tallarico is that, a lot of Democrats are looking for ways to fight back against Trump. What's the, like Gavin Newsom with they're hilarious at the posts and his clapbacks. But Tallarico, just by virtue of his very existence, it's easy for him. He uses his faith, and he speaks of it in a genuine, authentic way. And by virtue of his very existence, he completely calls out Republican MAGA hypocrisy on faith and all the issues.
David, I want you the one who said, and by the way, he does have, he's got some wacky tweets from 2021 that I think, mainly 2021. That he's going to have to clean up in the state of Texas if he's going to win, and other Democrats need to see how he cleans that up, because he was out there as the crest of the woke tide was breaking, he was tweeting. So we can all go
bad combination.
We can all go back but that will be but from what he said in 21. But you wrote something. And if you didn't write this, take credit for it, please, David.
I did.
That this race isn't about conservative versus liberal.
No.
It's about mean versus nice. And we're not all saying conservatives are all mean, but just the politics, the anger in American politics. This is really a race about can nice guys still finish first? Even if you don't agree with him on everything, can nice guys still finish first?
Well, yeah, because I think the thing that is actually resonating with him, with a lot of people, isn't so much that he's tying his religion to left-wing positions.
Yeah.
It's actually that he's treating even his opponents with decency. He's
That's right.
zigging away from the zag towards this constant pugilism and hatred of your political opponent. Along comes a guy who says, aren't we tired of that? Aren't we tired of
Just
that?
brings it back to the Bible. You know?
And then actually could say, I can have a conviction and disagree with you and still
Yes.
like you.
Right.